Hello and welcome to the third devlog for the medieval fantasy game I'm making, where we now finally have female characters in the game.
Milady?
I've also gone ahead and implemented the height system from Bouncy Basketball 2 and added the option here to this character customization screen that I created for testing purposes. I think characters with different heights can help make the game world feel more internally consistent, since the heights will generally depend on things such as which race the character is and whether they're male or female. And yes, you heard that right, there will be more than just humans in the game. After all, it is a fantasy game. My plan is to only have fawns for now, since they're probably my favorite fantasy race, but later on I might add more. Anyway, that's a subject for future videos. I don't want to make this game bigger than it already is, because I really need to focus on the equipment situation. As you can see, things are getting out of hand. My main problems are that I need to categorize the equipment to get a better understanding of what we have and what else is needed. And I also need to think of a naming convention for all the sprites as well as for the equipment names that will show up in-game. I think Skyrim does this pretty well, where they preface the equipment with either the material it's made of and or which race, faction or culture that primarily uses it. I mainly just want to avoid having to name the equipment like boots 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on, since that really messes with my mental categorization of things. To help me with this, I've started making this sheet where I can try to make sense of everything. So I'll add the rest of the equipment to it now and then we'll see where to go from there. Looking at this, it's apparent that the faction equipment needs another pass in order to feel more distinct from one another in terms of its level, while at the same time looking like it belongs together. I think the generic equipment manages this well, but basically more time needs to be spent on defining the factions and how they're supposed to look like. But we're only just getting started with the equipment, so that will all be sorted out eventually. Anyway, looking at these sleeves made me realize that I have to do something that I was hoping to avoid. Gauntlets and boots need to contain a condition for whether or not they're supposed to be displayed on top of shirts and pants. Then shirts and pants need to include a slim sprite in addition to the default sprite so that they can fit under the gauntlets and boots without being visible in the background. It's more work, but I think it's worth it because we can have a lot more variety in how the equipment looks, as opposed to having everyone looking like they're wearing spandex suits. So now that that's done, I'm very happy with it. It's a small detail, but it will make a lot of difference, I think. However, it's now time to bite the bullet and get back to working on the fight scene. In the last devlog, I said I would add more weapon types, so that's what I'll do now. Wish me luck, because this will probably take a few days at the very least. So I was delayed a bit because I got the coof, and then I had to solve a weird issue with the hit detection, but everything's good now, so I can Apparently, my girlfriend also has a job, and so I had to take care of our daughter for 2 weeks while she stayed home working, which is actually kind of hilarious that you now go out with your child and you stay home to work. But anyway, I'm now back and I've implemented all weapon types save for daggers. They all have their own animated controllers as well, but I'm going to wait with making individual polished animations because I first want to figure out exactly which animations are needed. Oh, and I know that some of these weapons are way too big, but that will also be fixed in the future. So after writing lists of all animations, I got a bit discouraged since most of these weapon types need unique attacks, which means that I need to recreate many of these animations several times over in the months to come. I've started working on Unarmed Combat now, but I'm getting a bit tired staring at this background all the time, so I'll take a break and add in a new environment to the fight scene. Fortunately, Water Witch and her team of artists have just made these arena sprites that I'll bring into the game and assemble it into a background. Alright, so this is much more interesting to look at. However, there's something a bit off with this background and I can't quite put my finger on it. It might have something to do with the parallax effect, or rather the lack of parallaxing in the stance where the audience is. I'm not sure, but I'll figure it out later. Right now, I've been making the character properly respond to picking up different weapon types, so the correct set of animations will play when switching weapons. And also, two-handed weapons will be dropped when picking up a shield and vice versa. The reason I've done this is to allow myself to maybe make some different gameplay scenarios in the future, rather than only having short, isolated fights like in Gladihoppers. Speaking of Gladihoppers, I wanted to give a big thanks to everyone who played it, because we recently surpassed 5 million downloads on Android, which is crazy to think about, but it does give me some reassurance that I have a proven concept to model this new game after. With Bouncy Basketball 2, I decided to completely diverge from Bouncy Basketball 1, and I ended up hitting a wall where I just couldn't make the game fun to play. So for this game, I'm going to stick as close to Gladihoppers gameplay as possible and leave the bigger changes and additions towards the end when the game is already functional and enjoyable to play. So the next feature to recreate is throwing actual throwing weapons, but I'll do that in the next devlog. I'm already very late with this video, so I'll just end it here. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.